Hi, this is Amy again. I'm doing a reflection on my paediatric emergencies that I've had, and I'm going to reflect on my most recent case that had a good outcome, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about paediatric ALS. So a little while ago, I had a 9-month-old boy carried in by his parents on my night shift into urgent care. The child was very, very distressed. He was covered in what looks like global hives, and with his distress, he had really noisy breathing. So at that point, I called my clinician on call and I escalated the care. I said, hey, I really need you to come in. And I think calling for help is really, really important to do early in situations like this. I then called the other RN that was working up in aged care and I said, you need to come down here. I have a 9-month-old child that's in what looks to be respiratory distress and has hives, potentially an allergic reaction. The background of the story I was able to get from mum. Dad and mum had English as a second language. I believe they were from the Philippines, and Dad's ability to tell the story was really limited by his stress. So mum was translating what Dad said, as well as adding her own information. About 30 minutes before they were dropped off to the urgent care by a friend, they had given their son some paracetamol. The reason why they gave paracetamol is the child had a bit of a runny nose, was irritable, had the signs of inerty, and they thought this Panadol would help settle him for bed. So working under the RCH, we looked at appearance and he was really distressed and crying. His eyes appeared swollen and there was difficulty and noisy breathing heard. His work of breathing was definitely increased for a child of his age, and he had short gasps as well. And his CAT refill was good though. So we looked at circulation and central CAT refill was good. What also was really interesting about this case is he came in with a singlet and a nappy on. I initially thought that it was due to the emergent nature of this thing, because as you can see, I'm wearing a jumper. It's really cold down here, you know, our ambient temperature's around 12 degrees, but it was because he has a past medical history of psoriasis. So on closer inspection, although it was hard to see, he has quite significant psoriasis on his elbows, behind his ears, and mum and dad keep Bub cool normally because that reduces distress for him. He was also fully immunised. And he was on hydrocortisone, which was used sparingly for the psoriasis. And yeah, so I'm just going through my notes to tell you the facts of the case. So I did get further information about his birth. It was an uncomplicated C-section. It was the first child, no siblings. This is probably not the best way to go about it after reflecting and looking at the RCH's guidelines for child assessment. But I just use the process of systems, which is something that we use in our UCU. We use system or head to toe. I think head to toe would probably be more appropriate for this presentation, but I've done it in systems. So his CNS, I noticed that he was able to be settled once into the department. Started pulling his hair, but his breathing had definitely settled, which was really good. I think when he was being made comforted, when he was comforted by Dad, his noisy breathing stopped, and when I listened with a stethoscope, his airways were clear on auscultation. He had a strong regular heart sound as well, which was good. He did have clear runny nose. I asked parents both about their COVID status, which they both replied that they had done a negative RAT test earlier on, so it was unlikely with neither mum or dad having any symptoms that this baby was positive for COVID, but we still had all of our N95 mask on for that. We did get a weight for Bub. It was 11.3 kilos. He was formula fed with a good appetite usually. He had a soft abdomen that wasn't tender, and he had good wet nappies. The nurse prac on call was able to review very quickly, so he got in within 5 minutes of the people walking through the door, which was a really quick time due to the nature of the phone call, I suppose. And together we gave loratadine stat 2.5 milligrams, and we also gave some prednisolone orally because of the sensitive nature. I also popped the air conditioning on, and I got a washcloth to try and cool the areas that were really hot and inflamed while still keeping him warm to prevent any hypothermia. The hives started to resolve very quickly, so within 20 minutes the hives had started to reduce down, and then it was about the nurse practitioner really giving some good information to the parents about the histamine response that has happened with this child. So they got a patient handout from the RCH. The NP took them through everything that had happened. They actually brought the Panadol with them, and they said they've never used the cherry flavour before. I think it was thrown in the bin, actually, from memory. They'd used the eucalyptus. It was also explained to them that it could have maybe been another thing that had triggered it, but the parents at that time were really sure that due to the nature and timing it was the paracetamol, which was fine. They are locals in the community and are going to make a follow-up appointment with their GP. And that then basically very, very happy with the care that they received, because it did look like it was the worst night of their life. In saying that, Bub's sugar was okay. His vitals, although he was tachypneic, his vitals were still within range. I had got out the adrenaline. However, I've never given adrenaline to a 9-month-old baby, so I also had the PDSat app on my phone, hoping I didn't need it. We were also in the resus room with a bag valve mask. I had my RN coming down. She arrived the same time as the nurse practitioner did, which was good because she was able to register Bub, because this is not a patient that we would leave alone. And for me, as I said at the start of the video, I've had a few of these cases where airway breathing or circulation has been compromised on the kids that have come through into UCU, and I'm going to do further education. I've got my ALS, but I'm actually going to go and do my advanced pediatric life support as well, just so I can feel more comfortable and confident that I'm giving the best care to these kids, because we are a growing town, which means we have a lot more new families moving here. I think there was 10 babies born a couple of months ago, it was in the paper, like we know, we're getting a new kindergarten. We have a lot more presentations coming through that are pediatric in nature. So although it's probably my favorite age group to work with, I also am really, really aware that sometimes when I'm the nurse on charge that I might be put in a situation like this. I'm going to also be doing a PEC through Krana, as well as my ALS, just because I just feel that you can't know enough tools to help. All right, thanks.